So here we are. We've got this arcade cabinet all set and drawn up in SketchUp. If you ever want to open the SketchUp file, feel free to. Just remember you've got to do it on the SketchUp app. If you just click to open the downloaded file, it's going to try to open the desktop version of SketchUp, and you won't be able to because we don't pay for the license anymore. So you would have to log in to SketchUp and say import from your device, and then you can import the SketchUp file. But here's what we got. We have a arcade cabinet that has all of these dowel holes in it, and these dowel holes are going to line up with holes that we eventually put into the ends of all of these parts with our horizontal boring machine. You don't have to worry about any of this stuff, because what you are going to do, let's say download SKP, you are going to be able to go to our canvas page and download that dowelarcade.skp file. So I just downloaded it, so it will be in the same location for me as it is for you. When you go to open it up, you'll get it from our canvas page. It'll be very obvious where you can download that file from. You're going to now open up Vcarve Pro, and as that's opening up, the purpose of this assignment is to get you comfortable using the tool paths and the multiple tool changes that our CNC router can offer. We haven't had to change tools before. This will be the first time. When you get to this, you'll see here recently opened, so I use this a ton, as you guys probably can figure out. You guys may not have a ton of recently opened things, but if you're coming back to this after not using it for a little while, maybe it will be there for you. But I'm going to assume that we don't have this. So I'm going to say create a new file, and the first thing we have to do is tell the software how big the sheet of material is that we are using to cut our arcade cabinet out of. We can change this later if we make a mistake, so it's not, we have to get it right this time or we're no good. The job size for this project, I'm over here in the top left corner, it's going to be 48 inches wide. The height is 96 inches, that's 8 feet. So it's a 4x8 sheet of plywood, that's 3/4 thick. We want to have the Z0 position be the machine bed, and the XY datum position is the bottom left. That means that on the router, this is the 0, 0 mark. And then I hit the OK button. Once I hit OK, now I'm ready to start editing. If we want to upload a SketchUp file, you're going to say import vectors. And then it's in my downloads. It will probably be in your downloads too. It's called Dowel Arcade. And I open this up. Really, really important thing here. Make sure that auto orientate is on. Make sure that create circles and arcs is checked. You want to have these two boxes checked because SketchUp doesn't actually do arcs. It does very little line segments. And that's going to be a problem when we try to cut circles out if we don't get that fixed. So make sure that these are on, and Vcarve will automatically turn it into an arc, and then this has to be unchecked. Replace outer boundary has to be open. Otherwise you're going to lose all the buttons, the holes, all that stuff. And then I'm going to say OK. Now it's going to nest this how it sees best. And I'm noticing real quick there's one little error, and you could fix that very easily. When I zoom in right here, there is an extra line. Just I'm going to make sure. I want to measure this as C, because you have the same file that I do. You'll have to do this too. It should be 5 inches. Oh, what is it if I go from here? Yeah, so I just screwed up and left a little extra part in there, so I am going to get the eraser. I'm going to click here, hit delete, click here, hit delete. I'm going to ungroup objects back to original layer. And then I can just click here and delete that. So now I'm back to 5 inches. And we're all good to go. Now, there's buttons on here, there's holes, there's all sorts of little things that we got to do. And we've got to add some tabs to this. First thing I want to do is spread this out the best that I can. So I want there to be as much space between these parts as we can possibly get, because it allows our parts to have these tabs on there that we'll do in just a second. Just trying to see what's going to be best for us. I like to have space between parts. They don't move when we cut them out on the router if we have space between parts. So just trying to utilize the whole sheet here. We're going to use the whole sheet, but I want to have space. So I'm going to rotate this, and maybe there's not a lot that I can do. Trying to get that over just a hair. And you'll see how we do tabs in just a second. If I move these up, I want to make sure I get that whole part. Move this. I guess I can't move that up because I get too close there. Move this over. Give myself a little more room there. And that's pretty good. So as long as you've got some space between your parts, everything should be just fine. So now we want to work from the inside out. I don't want to go cut the parts out first. I want to cut all the holes that I need to cut in a part. So I'm going to start with my little router bit first. Now I need to select all these holes. These are all going to be a 3/8 hole that's a 1/2 inch deep. So I'm going to draw a box around the whole part, but I don't want to have the outside selected. So I'm going to hold down Shift and click on the outside line, and that tells me that this part hasn't been ungrouped because it deselected all of them. So I right click and say ungroup. Things will usually default to being all grouped together. So I'm going to ungroup that. Now when I draw a box around the whole part and I hold down Shift, I can click on the outside line and it deselects that. And do you notice when I click on that outside line, there's still another line there. So SketchUp has brought in an extra line. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to assume that it did the same thing here. Delete that there. Now when I click on the outside line, I get it to be solid pink. Every once in a while, SketchUp will lay extra rectangles, and we have to do that one extra step. So now I'm back to doing this again. Highlight it all, hold down Shift, click on the outside line. And I deselected that. Click here. There we go. So I've got all the holes selected and I've deselected the outside line. I can see there's one extra little line here, and that might be a problem. So I'm going to one more time click away, and then I'm going to try to click over here. Maybe even zoom in. So I'll draw a line around the whole thing. There we go. So I can click all of it, draw a line around just that part, keep holding Shift down, click this, and now it just highlights that little line, and I can get rid of it. So I click the whole thing, hold down Shift, draw a box around it, keep holding Shift down, click on the outside line, and delete that. Now I think we're finally ready to do all those holes. Draw a line, click here, draw a line, click here, accidentally click that. Alright, so now we just have the holes selected. I want to do a pocket tool path because I want to get rid of all the material in there. My cut depth is going to be 0.5 inches, 1/2 inch into there. I'm just going to remove and start over, but that was the right bit. I want the 1/4 inch end mill. The 1/4 inch end mill is going to be in tool number 4, and looks like I've got it listed twice. Tool number 4, 100 inches, 40 is great. 2 flutes, that stuff's all good. Apply, select. Okay, so I've got the end mill selected. Sometimes that disappears. 2 passes is fine. Ramp plunge moves 1 inch. And then I'm going to call this small holes. Calculate. Now, it looks like a bunch of red lines. Red lines are areas where the CNC router moves, but it doesn't do anything. It's just rapid traversing. So if I want to see what's happening, I can say preview all tool paths, and I can see it's going to drill a bunch of holes. And if I go back here, I can kind of toggle between the two and see, yep, that's generally in the right place. So that is the only thing we're going to do with that 1/4 inch bit. I'm going to turn the tool paths off, which they're off already. Okay, now we need to do more inside stuff. So I'm going to cut these holes all the way out. So I'm going to select these guys, and I haven't ungrouped this one yet, so I right click, ungroup objects. I just want to hit the holes. come back to the same tool path, but now we want to cut all the way through. So this is a 3/4 inch seat. 0.75 would get us almost all the way through. 0.755 will get us all the way through. I want to remove this, and I want to select the 3/8 end mill. And I cheat a little bit. I have 375 is what the diameter actually is, but I make the tool be, tell the machine the tool is a little bit smaller, because as it gets used, it gets dull and it gets smaller. So that should say 0.37. If it says 0.375, that's okay. 18,000 is great, 200, 400, and that is in tool 1. So I can say select, move my face out of the way. Passes 1 is fine. Ramp the plunge moves an inch. The reason we're ramping these plunge moves is the bottom of the router bit doesn't have a teeth on it like a drill bit does. It's a flat bottom. So we have to come in at an angle to cut. I'm going to call this buttonholes. Calculate. Okay. That's just telling me it's going to cut all the way through, and that's fine. Okay. Looks like it missed these two. Now, it's interesting when that happens. Do you notice how when I click here, there is one little part left? That's happening because those two are not completely joined. So what I'm going to do is draw a circle around it, come over here, and I'm going to join the vectors. I'll just give it a 1-inch tolerance and say join. Now when I click on it, the whole thing is selected. Same thing here, join. Now the whole thing is selected. So instead of having to go back and recalculate all that, what I'm going to do is just open up buttonholes. I'm holding down the shift key. Select those again and hit calculate. I'll get the same error message that it's going to cut all the way through, and that's all right. And there we go. We've got all the buttonholes cut out. Next thing I got to cut out is the screen. So I want to ungroup objects back to original object layer. It's totally good. And I want to cut this rectangle out. Now, I don't want to try to remove all the materials. Like with the buttons, I just turned all the inside material into sawdust. That would take forever to do on here. So I'm going to do the profile tool path. This is where the router bit follows the line. And I want to cut this all out. So 0.755. And I want to select the 3/8 end mill. That same one that actually says 0.37. Select. And I want to go on the inside of the line. See what happens when I click here? Now the router bit goes on the inside. And I want it to go on the inside. That looks good. Add that ramp. That's great. The other thing I do want to add here is a tab. I want the tabs to be 1/16 of an inch, 0.0625, and a 1/2 inch long. And what this is going to do is put little tiny tabs in here that are going to hold it in place while it's being cut out, so it doesn't accidentally move on me. And we'll use tabs quite a bit here. You'll see them in a second. Okay, we got that done. Now, one thing I want to make sure that we understand is we're going to put some plastic edging on the inside of the arcade, the spot where the monitor is going to go, because our molding can't make these sharp corners. So I'm actually just going to move me again, close this, and I want to turn the tool path off so I don't see it. And I want to do a thing called a fillet. So a fillet over here creates a round inside edge. So I don't want to do 3 inches, but I might do 1 inch. And you can see when I click here how that makes it round. That's going to be a lot easier to get that molding in. And I want to go 1.5. So I'm going to Control Z that. I got 1.5. I'm going to click these corners. I'm going to do that to all of them and hit close. When I look back here and I turn that on, that didn't change. So this profile one, I'm just going to say recalculate. And that's okay. It's saying it's going to cut all the way through. Say okay. And you see how it recalculated, so it's now going to cut that out. You'll thank me when it comes time to actually putting that T-molding in. It will definitely go in a lot easier if we have those round edges. And the other corner that I want to do that to is this one. So I'm going to come back here to do this fillet. And this one I'm going to do a 3-inch radius. It's hard to get that T-molding in there. So I'm going to do that so we get more of a sweep. And that doesn't look like I did the same thing. I just undid that. Let's see if I can get it a little better. I wonder why it's not letting me do that. I'm just undoing and redoing a couple things here. There we go. Now let me do that. And that'll be easier again to put that molding in on. Everything else we should be good. Okay, now the last cuts that we need to make is the profile. So I'm going to hold down Shift and select all of the outside of these parts. Oh, I can see I've got extra parts here. I'm going to delete that one. There, now we're good. I can even draw a box through them and it will allow me to get more than one done at the same time. And now I'm back here to a profile tool cut. And I'm going to rename this one. Oh, I just unselected them all. That was a bummer. Let's call this screen. Then I get to go back and do this all again. Okay, I'm going to do a profile tool path, 755, cut all the way through, the same 3/8 end mill. This time we want to move to the outside because we want to cut around, and we want to add tabs. This is super important, and I've noticed this has been a really good way to help us be successful and not have these parts move on the router. So I'm going to say edit tabs, and I want to put tabs where there's the most lumber for that tab to hold on to. So each piece should get 2 tabs. I don't want to put the tabs on a curve though, because I'm going to get in there, and for this big one I'm going to put 3, because I've got to get in there with an oscillating cutter and cut them out. So if I put it right on the edge here, it's really difficult to cut out. If I put it on a straight edge, it's not too bad. And if you've got a different layout than I do, you're never going to go wrong by putting too many tabs on. So I'll do 3 in places where I think 3 is better. The smaller the piece, the more tabs you should have. And that's just going to leave a small amount of wood. I'm going to get rid of that one. That's just going to leave a small amount of wood to hold it there so the piece doesn't move while it's being cut out. Close that. Okay, we want that same ramp. And we're going to call it outside. And hit calculate. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is move my face out of the way, and I'm going to preview this. So I'm going to say preview toolpaths, reset, preview all toolpaths. So what I'm checking for is I can see the tabs here, so those things are going to get held in place so they don't move on me. I can see these holes go all the way through, and I can see that these holes don't go all the way through. You could zoom in and out. The graphics aren't amazing on here, but it does kind of let me double check that everything is going to get cut out just fine. So what I'd like you to do at this point is come up here and hit File, Save As. If it's the end of the class period, you can do this as well. Put it in downloads for now. Arcade cabinet is fine. But I'd also then like you to come to your Google Drive and upload it to there. And if you've got a file for Woods 2, that's great, or Advanced Woods, that's what I'm trying to find. I have too many folders on here. Trying to find the right file. I'm going to say File, Upload, Vcarve. Oops. Arcade cabinet, open. And now it's saved on your Google Drive, so you can get it whenever, wherever you need it. That'll be an assignment on Canvas that you'll be able to upload it to, and then I want to look through it with you before we cut it out. So work on that with your partner, and if you get stuck, let's talk through it.